what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Footcandle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Footcandle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me is Chris Fry. We are with the Footcandle Film Society, the annual Footcandle Film Festival, the Footcandle Films podcast. Is there anything else, Chris, to add to that list? That covers everything, right?
I think so.
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Off the Memorial Day weekend,
Yes.
So lots went on. So it's actually a little bit kind of restful to return to work.
Yeah, I agree. I actually kind of was happy to get back into a regular routine today and looking forward to it. How was, before we get into all of our reviews, so you did go visit the movie theater, obviously, sometime this Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
How are the crowds? How was the traffic for the theater this weekend?
So it seemed busy as far as, the lobby seemed to have plentiful droppings of popcorn everywhere, which is a sign that usually the crowds have been there.
Actually, the theater we have in town, no, signs of popcorn all over the floor is actually just normal day-to-day operations. That has no bearing on crowd size.
Fair point. The theater that I actually went into to see the movie that we're going to review today maybe had 10 or so people, but you and I have come to discover that we think when new movies open, most of the crowd flocks to the, whatever you want to call your Big D, Dolby Theater, IMAX, whatever the biggest way possible to see the film. That is how
first.
most people, and so just scheduling wise, that's not how I saw it. So I don't know how big the audience was here in Western North Carolina, but I assume it must have done okay.
The film we're going to be reviewing, well, we had two options we could have reviewed this weekend. We could have been watching the Disney live action remake of Lilo and Stitch, like half of America appears to have done this weekend because it made a lot of money and set records for Memorial Day weekend. We did not, because we don't always flow with the tide. We don't always go with the rest of the group think in our society. So we went to the second most popular movie of the weekend, which was Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. That's what we'll be discussing in our review here in just a moment. Following that, we do have some trailers to show for a couple of interesting films coming up in the near months that we want to watch the trailers and get some immediate feedback on what we think we're seeing. I have a very, very quick little news item to throw in kind of related to Mr. Cruise that we'll be talking about in our review. And then I believe, Chris, you said you do have a recommendation to share with us at the end of the episode as well, a film recommendation to share. So we have a lot to get to. This podcast is going to run hopefully just a little shy of the running length of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which I think clocked in at 240. Am I right with that?
240, 243, somewhere in there.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay. We're going to come in shorter than that. I can go ahead and promise you our episode will be somewhat shorter. But I don't want to I don't know what your intro, if you've written an intro for the film, I don't want to take away any little catchphrases. I was going to say, our mission, if we choose to accept it, is to review this film, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
But I'm not going to take away anything you may have pithy and well-written to introduce this film in a moment. Let's just go ahead and roll right into our review of the film Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
This can't all be true.
Every word.
CIA Black Vault break-in.
Am I reading this correctly? The Kremlin bombing?
In fairness, the bomb was actually meant to kill him.
He gassed a security briefing.
That was just 2 months ago.
This explains the handcuffs. It's still not clear why he's here.
Your mission star Tom Cruise, and director Christopher McQuarrie supply a satisfying end to the Mission Impossible franchise with this 8th installment that finds Ethan Hunt not globe-trotting, but globe-running, as you'd expect, to disable a dangerous weapon known as the Entity before it can destroy all mankind. Alan, what was your experience with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning?
Wow, you just kind of lay right into the question there.
Did it deliver on the action-packed spectacle these films have become known for, or did it self-destruct under the weight of its 2-hour and 43-minute runtime?
I think this movie did fine. I think this movie, I'll go ahead and say it. Look, I had a good time with this. I think it worked. I think I was more just happy that I found more to enjoy than I did the last movie, which was the Dead Reckoning. That one I was a little disappointed with. Did not quite hit the marks I was hoping for. So I walked away a little disappointed. This movie has some issues. It has some problems. I feel like this is a movie that I could almost feel them having tinkered with quite a bit after Dead Reckoning had a less than stellar response from fans.
Okay.
And I do feel like this film, I could almost feel the weight of, we have to fix these things, or we have to do this differently. We have to like kind of maneuver some things around to get the fans back on board. And, you know, for the first half of the film, it is feeling like it's a lot of set piece setting up. It's a lot of exposition. It's a lot of what I was worried, and I felt like Dead Reckoning did. That was not as enjoyable. But I will say, by the time we got to a couple of set pieces, which I know we'll probably talk about in this review, the film won me back over. By the end, it had successfully accomplished its mission, so I felt the mission was successful, and I felt like I walked away with a good experience. These last two films have not been my favorites at all of this whole franchise. I think this franchise hit its peak from about Ghost Protocol, which was the 4th movie, to when Christopher McQuarrie got involved with Rogue Nation, and then Fallout. That to me is like, that's the peak. That's where the franchise just worked. These last two films, not been great, but this one I do feel like redeemed it to some degree. And, look, I'm going to love him or hate him. I'm going to sing Tom Cruise's praises, because I do feel like, the whole film rests on whether or not you buy him and you enjoy seeing him perform. And I do. And I think he was really good here too as well. So I liked Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning more probably just as I think it did the job it needed to do. It did it successful enough to get by, and it made it a worthwhile, fun watch. So that's where I am with it, Chris. What about your thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning?
So, had I not been trying to screen film submissions for our film festival, which, we've mentioned a couple of episodes, I am in the throes of frantically trying to watch everything to, make sure that we pull the best films when our festival happens in September. But I would have tried to watch. I've seen all the Mission Impossible films, but because this has been heralded as being the last one, I was like, I feel like I need to kind of get on the vibe and try to revisit them, because, some of the ones that I remember liking the most are some of the early ones that I don't really have. I like the Philip Seymour Hoffman, Mission Impossible 3. Yeah. I remember really liking that one, but other than the fact Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it, I don't really recall a lot about it. And this may be blasphemy to some that really love the franchise. I also remember really liking the second one.
You're one of those people.
I know, I'm one of the few. And I think because the first one I was like, oh, it was okay. The second one was like and it was ridiculous, but was ridiculously stylized. So it was like, oh, okay, this is something kind of odd. Yeah. So that kind of like, but then I kind of went to sleep on the franchise. I've seen them, but I don't really remember them. And then I remember Fallout and Rebecca Ferguson. And I was like, okay.
Well, Rebecca Ferguson was introduced in Rogue Nation. But
right, she was in Rogue Nation, but then Fallout was both. But Rogue Nation, so that kind of woke me up again. Yeah. And then Fallout, I was like, okay, gotta say, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. So to come to The Final Reckoning, so not the biggest fan like you are and others. Dead Reckoning, I felt like had elements, but I think the number one thing I had against it was that I felt kind of like it had the Hobbit disease, where it was like, we know we're going to make a last one. We're calling this, Dead Reckoning, but we want to
called
stretch
it part one, that was the mistake.
Right. We want to stretch it out over two films. And I'm like, I think if you had taken this installment and the first installment and put it together, I think you would have gone out with a bang with the Mission Impossible franchise. But I will say the number one thing that I was the most concerned about, in theory, from what I hear, was that I wanted this to be the last film. And from what I hear, supposedly, or air quotes, is as currently envisioned, this is the last film. So I'm like, okay, so that way I don't feel, if they had not done that, I think at the end I would have, eye rolled, groaned, and just been like, ugh, because one of the taglines for the film that you see in the trailer is, I need you to trust me one last time. Ethan Hunt says that to the camera, and you're like, okay. So they did, for me, they did live up to the promise of, no, this is it, folks. So I thought it was just okay. I had been warned, and had I not been warned, I probably would have been more irritated and more eye-rolling. There was a lot of buzz when this film, I think it did screen at Cannes. And so people who'd seen early screenings or saw it at Cannes, they were saying how the callbacks in the first 20 minutes or something just were like, it was like an episode recap that you'd watch on streaming. It was like, you remember this happening? Remember this happening? Remember this happening? You're like, okay, I got it. As it was in the film, I think because I'd been set up with it, it wasn't as bad as what I envisioned in my head.
Actually, I kind of liked it in a way, because it to me, it was look, this is a capstone, this film, you've watched, this will be the 8th one of this series. And it's like, you look at the running time of these films. I mean, that's running at least 20 hours of content we've experienced with these people.
I want to know how much of that is running time for Ethan Hunt.
That's what I want to know. But I mean, to give me do a 3-4 minute little recap montage, whatever. That's fine. You've warranted that. You've earned it. I feel like at this point. So I'm with you. I didn't feel like it was. I feel like it was just something for people to get bothered by, and I didn't think it was bothersome. So I thought it actually. I will say, if you had told me that this film was going to have linkages to previous films, I would have groaned going into it saying, oh no, don't do this whole thing where it's just like keep pulling in all these references to other things. No, they do. There are references to previous films. There's actually more references and tie-ins to the number 3, the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman, than anybody would have expected. And a character that was even from a very early movie, which again, if you had told me this setup beforehand, I would have rolled my eyes and say, don't do it.
Sure.
But actually in the film, it works. I'm like, you know what? It does make this feel like it's a grander tale to tell, and that we're kind of wrapping this up with a big movie at the end. So yeah, I was good with all the callbacks and the references and the montages and all that. So I think it all worked.
On that note of callbacks, references, if they had played Bob Seger's Old Time Rock and Roll during one of Hunt's 2 underwear scenes,
oh my gosh,
that would have been amazing.
The guy,
now, granted, that would have been referencing Risky Business, a cruise film outside of this. But like the first time he did an underwear thing, I was like, okay, what it didn't strike. The second time, however, I'm like, okay, like what's up with that?
There's a lot of Tom Cruise in underwear.
Right.
I think let him go. Let him do it.
He's 60 years old.
He's good.
Sure,
he's all good.
But it was just kind of like, okay.
This is the first. Yeah, the underwear took a little bit of the place of the running. There was a good one running sequence,
right,
but it was not quite as prominent a running as I think the trailer had maybe led us to believe was going to be in this film. Instead, the running was replaced with a lot of underwear action, and it's fine too. Look, the guy can pull it off, so I'm not complaining. I think it's fine. Let him go with it. But yeah, it was. It's still Tom Cruise. I mean,
sure.
This is the first. I will say, and I don't think it's right or fair to be commenting on actors' appearances or physiques. This is the first movie where I did feel like, okay, yeah, Tom Cruise is he's showing his age. I did get a little bit of that. I mean, he's still still obviously he's performing these stunts. We're going to talk about these stunts in a little bit. But this is the first where I started to get a little bit of a weariness to him in his performance. First time I've seen that, which warranted and understood. And I think it also matches the tone of the film. It's kind of like, yeah, this is kind of a last hurrah. So if it's okay if he's a little world weary at this point, and the lines in his face are a little more prominent, and I get it, and it makes sense. So it worked for the film. So
a note I had on the film too, without spoiling anything, but this one's pretty obvious from the trailer. For me, there were too many fake outs as far as who was going to die. I half expected one who passed away pretty early in the film to magically show up just because of how they were doing. I was like, okay. And there was another film recently we've reviewed, let's say within the past 2 years. I can't recall the title of it, but I remembered that was kind of like a thing that was irritating to me, is they kind of dangled like, oh, this person. Now, granted, I guess in these type of action films, there are no stakes if you don't feel like certain key characters, maybe not the main character, but other like side characters that you come to love or whatever. If that's what kind of creates suspense, is like, oh, they're going to die, and like, oh, no, they're not. And then they kind of move on. That was a little bit of a minor irritation, but there again, it's an action film, so I guess you kind of expect it.
And I'm just trying to think now what film that was.
See, I don't know. I couldn't remember it, but I remember in our discussion, it was kind of a sticking point at that for both of us. And it wasn't a Mission Impossible film. It was some other.
No, yeah, I know.
It was some other franchise. I just can't remember. But also, question for you, because I think you're a little bit more familiar with the franchise overall. Is the mask ripping off thing contractually obligated in the films? Or,
well,
because this one specifically, I was like, I felt it was really telegraphed. And I was just like, they did it in the first film, the very first one,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
It's been
in every film.
Well, look, here's the issue with it, as I think that is a complaint I've got about this film, is that, I mean, this is ultimately a spy franchise, and I felt like this film really didn't have any spy elements to it.
That's
you had
true.
one scene with Mask, and I felt like that was actually something that felt like an add-on later in the rewriting process, just to kind of squeeze it in and get something in there. But yeah, like you walk away from this, there's no spy work in this film. It is all just action set piece. We have to go retrieve this item, and so we go do it. There's no spy. There's no tech really involved in kind of dealing with things. I mean, so yeah, that's a complaint I've got, is I feel like, it doesn't really play to the genre like I hope it would. And that's more of a personal expectation.
Okay.
Another issue I have with the film, and I think it's a big one, is I think it's a villain issue. The villain being this AI thing, which I've even brought up as kind of an issue in the last film too.
Yeah, both of us were kind of like, okay. Yeah.
And I know that you've got, you have kind of a stand-in human villain in Isai Morales playing Gabriel, but he's still more of a henchman than he is like the actual villain. Was
he the one that you were referencing? Because again, I'm blurry on stuff. Should have gone back and watched the entire franchise. Was he someone that was in early? I mean, I know he was in the film before.
So he was not in earlier films, but in the last film, they rewrote some history to make it to where he was involved in their past. Okay. But he has not been in a previous film.
Okay.
So, but to have it be this AI entity, and you have one scene very early in the film where Ethan Hunt gets to interact with the AI. And although I did not like that premise and that setup, I at least thought, okay, well, if you're going to go this route with an AI villain, at least give it a personality, at least give it something you can interact with. I didn't care for the whole, I got to sit in this little clumsy tube and hook up and talk to it. I thought that was a little ridiculous.
Right.
But I'm like, at least if you're going to do that, cool. At least that's the way you interact with it.
Okay.
But it never happened again.
Right.
So the AI became this silent character the whole rest of the film.
Sure.
I really think if they really wanted to make this work right, I think there's a way to make the AI menacing and scary, even if you never interact with it. It is like, shoot it like a ghost horror movie where it's like, it's like certain things light up whenever the AI presence is like taking something over, like it does at the very end of the film. Like really play up the tension of the moments of, okay, this is a creature we can't see. It's a villain we can't see, or we can't always predict what it's going to do. And there's ways to build tension and drama off of that. And they just never really felt like it. It's like, felt like they were just chasing after something that we as an audience can't really relate to, can't really connect to, don't really have any affinity towards. So it's just tough. The thing is, you look at the best movies that are action movies, spy movies, whatever, it's typically they're rooted in having a really good adversarial relationship. You mentioned Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah, Mission Impossible 3 is not considered by most people one of the better Mission Impossible movies. However, Philip Seymour Hoffman is considered the best villain that's ever been in these films. And I agree. That's what makes that movie work to the degree it does. So just to have this film where it's like, yeah, we're chasing after bits and bytes and there's no personality to it. It's hard to get a sense of the menace and the threat when you can't see it. There's a way they could have done it, but they opted not to. They tried to use Gabriel as kind of the guy that they can actually go after, but it just didn't. That element of it was a disappointment for me. So,
well, something that functioned, and I'm interested to hear. You said you wanted to kind of talk about the action set pieces here in a second. Something that surprised me. So I guess in that sense, okay, maybe this is interesting. But it surprised me in a bad way. When Ethan went underwater, the film got waterlogged for me. I was so bored because it was hard to create tension for me when you see open hatch, door, dodge falling debris, rinse, repeat. And the nature of being underwater, you can't run, you can't do things fast underwater. So that just to me was boring. And that felt like, I mean, it wasn't, but it felt like 30 minutes of him doing that. And I was just like, okay, I'm ready for this to end. Now, yeah. And that was really surprising but I mean, I guess by nature, you have to slow down when you're underwater. You don't have a choice. Right. But him like dorking around inside a sub. I was like, okay, please make this end. So.
It totally worked for me. I thought it was good and thrilling. And I mean, it was a unique setup to an action scene. So I enjoyed it. And plus it was different than something we've seen before. So I was happy with that element of it as well. So no, it worked fine for me. I thought it was good. I mean, really, I think once you got to that scene, at least for me, that's when the film started to kind of pick up a little bit. And then from there on out, it really led to what I just have to say. Look, I may have some misgivings with the rest of the film, but I have to say, I think in my opinion, the action sequence at the end with the biplanes is probably the best action sequence I've seen as a long action sequence in one of these movies. The most thrilling I have felt watching people on screen in death-defying situations. And I thought it was brilliant. So I loved that so much.
That was teased in the trailer.
Which I wish it wasn't.
We knew it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But it gave me hope because all during that underwater thing, I'm like, oh, please. They got out and I'm like, okay, I haven't seen the planes yet.
There's a bigger
I haven't seen the
set
planes
coming,
yet.
yeah.
And then I was like, okay. And as soon as that kicked in, yes, my interest, I kind of shook myself awake and it ended up being satisfying. But yeah, I think that's what made it worse was such a slow down. And then we got to like what everybody was kind of waiting for because you hadn't seen it yet. So I think that kind of made it a little bit more excruciating for me than I was expecting.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I just have to say the way that final action set piece was shot, the use of far away shots just as much as close-ups to kind of give you a sense of the space that was happening around it just adds to it. It just really added to the tension. I mean, I'll have to say, I could say this is a complaint, but it's actually more of a kudos to show just how good Tom Cruise is at those kind of sequences. Because in that biplane sequence,
yes,
he is there, and it's Asaya Morales as Gabriel sparring with him in another plane.
Sure.
And there's a moment where we see the Gabriel character, I'm just going to say out on a wing or out in a dangerous situation. And it so clearly that he, Isaiah Morales, is in front of a green screen.
Okay.
And I could pick that apart and make that a complaint, but no, it's a compliment in that it reassured me that nothing I saw with Tom Cruise, who we've been watching the entire rest of the sequence, was. So it's like, it's almost like, okay, here's another actor trying to show off the same kind of action sequence. And no, he's not doing it for real. And yet Tom Cruise, yes, he is. This is what we're seeing is real. So that was still just really nice it was a nice affirmation of what he was doing. Well, even though I did kind of chuckle when I saw Isaiah Morales and I could tell it was in front of a green screen. I'm like, of course. Yeah.
Okay. And I will also provide something for that I found admirable, but it's in kind of an odd way. You mentioned how not fair to criticize actors or actresses, body or, how they look or something. But it's been a topic of conversation just because Tom Cruise is 60 years old and he's still making these Mission Impossible franchises, right, and doing his own stunts and everything. So you got to say, like, yeah, that's something. During that sequence, he is hanging on to a plane in some form or fashion, but his hair is like, because of the wind and everything, but basically gives him like a dome haircut. And but here's the thing. It is extremely unflattering. However, for Tom Cruise, who's going to be doing these stunts, he realizes, and for him being like, nope, it is what it is, and if it's realistic, and so
that's what my hair would do.
Instead of having the Tom Cruise that you see on the poster,
right,
and his hair just like flowing and being like slow motion, no, this is an unflattering. I'm risking my life performing this stunt, And I was like, you know what, I admire that. Way to go. Just letting it be. Very realistic.
There was a meme going on online about how amazing it was that Tom Cruise let himself have the Harry Dunn from Dumb and Dumber haircut.
Well, okay, that's okay. Yes, good call. That is exactly what.
He did. He really did.
Okay.
No, look, I think the filmmakers were smart. I know people are commenting, and some people have complained about the kind of the pacing of the film, the first half versus second half, and all that. Yes, it does take a while for this film to really kind of get into gear.
Got you.
I think it was a smart move for them to end with the sequence they did.
Sure.
Because it's like, all right, that's what you walk out of the theater remembering. It's like, wow, that was really great.
Sure.
And then luckily, I think the coda after that, the ending, kind of was a little button ending for this whole saga. It did kind of give you a sense of some things were ending. And the spirits were still high with me at that point going in. So I'm like, all right, the movie paced itself well for me. If it had been reversed in any way, shape, or form, yes, I could see people walking. If the underwater sequence had been the last sequence, I think it would have been disappointing. People would have not felt like they really got the full bang of this saga. But the way they paced it and the way they structured it, it made sense by the end. And I think it worked. So
I think... the last scene, slow motion walking, glances, disappearing into a crowd, eye rolling for me. However, as I've said, if this is the last film, okay. Because if you do this once and then you come out with another and you're like, that's cheating. But if this is a lot, then it's like, okay, that's an okay note to end on, because like you say, it is a button tying up. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a pass because it's supposed to be the last one, but don't cheat.
Okay, but there's a caveat to the whole "but don't cheat" thing because look, I get it. You're the Eagles. You say that you're done, you're broken up, and you're never going to get back together again. But then years passed, and you're just like, you know what? Actually, it'd be kind of fun, or somebody's waving enough money in front of my face. I want to get together again, and so you do get back together again. Are you lying at that point that you just no? At the time,
it's a business. It's a business.
At the time, we had intended for this to be the last one. Mission Impossible. At this time, we are intending that this is the last one.
But we can't walk away from dump trucks of money.
Well, and I mean, if the audiences love this movie and they say, you know what, hey, we came out in droves to see it, and we'd love to see another one. What you got? I mean, there's nothing saying. I'm not going to be angry. I would be angry if they were already planning the next one. They knew that, and they just kind of made this one look like it had an ending just to try to play off of that.
Right.
I don't think that's the case. I think they really do feel like this is done. But You never say never.
I will say, without spoiling anything, the implications of the glowing cylinder not being smashed, that irritated me because I was like, I don't understand that because, there's the glances, the walking off anything, but the glowing cylinder not meeting its end. I was like, really? Okay. And that to me worried me because I was like,
you're right.
Okay, that's a lead into another film. However, after I saw the film, I did look online. They're like, no, as currently envisioned, this is
they are
it.
envisioned.
So,
go ahead.
So after I've been talking, I think I've maybe had the one positive thing about Tom Cruise's hair at one point. But like I say, I thought this film was okay. Would have been better as smooshed into the other Reckoning film to make the one Reckoning. But one callback that worked like gangbusters for me was Ethan getting to meet the wife of someone he, air quotes, ruined the career of in the first film.
Yes.
Unexpected, really liked that moment. And I wish, although because we haven't seen the biplanes yet, the film wasn't going to end right then. But somehow, because it's like, some dramatic stuff just happened and it's like, okay. And then actually, it's a lot of the underwater stuff that had just but the way they kind of ended that, I was like, okay. And there was that call, and I was like, wow, if that had somehow been the ending of it, I'd have been like, dude, you totally brought this back around. So I don't know. But that really, really worked for me in a way. Very few moments in the entire Mission Impossible franchise that I can remember worked for me, but that one worked.
Let me expand on that a little bit because I agree completely. Actually, I'm going to even broaden it out. The whole encounter with the individual that this woman's married to and his role in the whole thing, I thought was really interesting.
Agreed.
Because as soon as he walked on the screen, I knew who he was.
Oh, did you?
Oh,
okay.
absolutely.
I had an idea. He looked familiar, and then it was like, oh, okay, got you.
As soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know who this guy is.
Okay,
and it's like, as it played out, it's like, wow. And I'm like, okay, they could have done this as a cheap cameo, just like, oh, hey, isn't this funny that we brought this guy in? But to actually, there's a moment in the helicopter where Tom Cruise meets him. I'm like, that is interesting because it's kind of like you're kind of facing some of the consequences of some of the things you're doing.
Right.
And we as an audience don't think about this guy who was in this first movie that just had something unfortunate happen to him.
In typical action films, everyone else is disposable except for our main hero. Right. And this is like,
So I agree. I think it was really good and really smart and it worked. And it's one of the moments that did elevate this film a little bit for me from just trying to repeat and rinse the kind of the same. We got to have exposition, we got to have government intrigue, then we got to have a big action set piece, then we got to do this. Okay. It actually added some more human elements to it. And even the fact that those two, this couple that we now met, do play a little part later on. And like they have, and I always felt like it was nice to see, quote, normal humans involved in this process. I'm like, that's nice. That's actually a good change. It needed this, and it worked.
Because in a way, that's more impressive than having Ethan Hunt who can do everything.
Yeah, right.
You have some quote unquote normal people having to navigate these things. And it's like, okay, that is in some ways more interesting because I get you with that.
Can I give a quick note on what I would have liked to have seen?
Sure.
Okay.
I said I wanted to end with that. But okay, what would you like to see?
So if you're going to go the whole route of this being kind of a celebration of the entire saga, there are 8 films.
Correct.
And there's even some allusions and a lot of montages and flashbacks to even the moments in the first film. If you recall in the first one, the Brian De Palma film.
Right.
The film starts, Tom Cruise is part of a team. This team gets wiped out, sacrificed, like in the first 20 minutes of this film. And that's supposed to be something that's kind of always driven Cruise and his character somewhat. It's supposed to be kind of a motivation. It's like, I let that team down, or I did something that caused their downfall, or I didn't trust the right people, and therefore, so I'm always driven by, I want to protect this team. I care more about the team sometimes than I do the bigger mission. And that the films in general have always kind of touched on that. The problem these films have had is that the team has changed and morphs all throughout the 8 films.
I was upset when Rebecca Ferguson disappeared.
Well, she
I
disappeared.
mean, I thought it was good way, but that was like, oh, and then we
but
bring
we
in
get to the
Haley
end of this
Atwell as
film.
our
We get to
replacement.
the end of this film, and there's the slow motion acknowledgement of each other. And as you're looking around, you're just like, yeah, only one of these people has been around for more than like the last two movies.
And that's Simon Pegg, right?
Right.
Right.
Simon Pegg.
Right.
Ving Rhames is actually the only person who's been in all 8 movies. Simon Pegg joined in Mission Impossible 3, so he's only been around since then. But everybody else is new. Even one guy, I think, literally showed up this movie.
I think you're right. Yes.
So what it would have been really great is if that last sequence had happened in the same space where the crap went down at the beginning of the first movie, many years ago, kind of a little bit of an acknowledgement of, okay, he has now like kind of rebuilt a team that he has kept safe. And yes, there are different people changing. But anyway, I don't know. I think there could have been some ways to really hammer in that point that this is about the team. As many people that want to argue that the Mission Impossible movies were all about Tom Cruise. And yeah, they were. But there was always this other secondary through line of it's about a team. And the times that the films didn't work for me were the times I felt like they forgot about the team. And they also forgot about them being spies. You know, that's when I get sometimes frustrated with the films.
Sure.
So anyway, I thought if you're really going to kind of hammer home this idea, this concept, and you really want to put bookends on this whole thing, that would have been kind of really interesting to kind of have some more connection to that very first moment, because that seemed by the end of this film to be a little bit more of a driving moment than I think they ever like really let on that it was for him as a character. Anyway, that's my note to the director, Christopher. Can I call you Christopher or should I call you Chris? I don't know.
I think people refer to him as McQ or
Mick
Q.
Q, really?
Yeah, from Macquarie. But
Okay.
yeah.
Q. I'm going to go even more casual. That's my idea. Just if you wanted to do a director's cut re-edit, it might be an interesting way to do it. Do you have any other thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, Chris?
So I will say, I guess it's in improv. You always say yes and. So to that comment that you made, I'll say yes. And what would have sold it even more for me was that during the runtime of The Final Reckoning, Hunt at one point, Ethan Hunt, kind of hands off the leadership role to another individual.
Yes.
And if that had then resonated at the end of the film, maybe possibly with someone else's demise, I would have been like, wow, like that would have also, but not surprised it didn't do that. But you're saying you're like, oh, what could have made this resonate more? I'll say yes, and then also this would have really blown my mind.
Look, yeah, we're not getting into spoiler stuff.
Sure.
But could the film have ended on a different note and with some different character paths that I think maybe would have fit better for where we are? Yeah. Am I a little surprised that, like Top Gun Maverick, where I'm a little surprised they chose to continue some certain character's existence beyond this film? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. The film had moments where it could have easily have gone in a direction that would have made sense to do something with a character, but they didn't. That's their call.
Sure.
That's their choice. So be it. That's the story they wanted to tell, and I'm okay with that. Couple really quick notes.
Sure.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was the one film I think that we talked about that had the incredible number of character fake outs.
You did that without the intern running in here and telling you
It's just
yes.
totally from my brain.
I liked Volume 3. I liked the
you
film.
liked it better than I did, but
Yeah, I did, but I was the one thing that really I was like they kept teasing different characters.
faked out
You're like,
so
come on,
many
like I
character
don't know
deaths.
which character they didn't fake the death for. Yes, totally. So that and I was like, dude,
I call it
come
the
on.
Palm Clemente effect because she was in
both
both
films. Way
That's
to go. Yeah,
there you go. Secondly, quick notes. Please put Tremel Tillman in more films. He played Captain Bledsoe. You might know him as Milchek from the show Severance.
Yeah.
Yes, I want him in more films. Yes, was he playing basically a version of Milchek as a submarine captain? Yes, he was.
But
was he
so
awesome? Yes, he was.
The one thing that would have made it better is if for no reason he would have like done a dance number.
Oh yeah.
And
And there was one moment where he got all happy, and I really thought, he's about to
gonna
break
do
into
it.
a dance. This is going to be great.
Yeah, he was. And unfortunately, there again with the teaser or the trailer, I had seen like a really quick cutaway to him. I was like, oh, he's going to be in this. And yeah, he was awesome. He
was
when
great.
He was on screen.
He was so good.
Yeah.
I'll also say too, Nick Offerman, please play Army generals more often because I think he's got a knack for that. He was very good.
He was good in Civil War.
Yep.
And in this, actually, okay, little feather in the cap for Christopher McQuarrie and, the writers of the film. The round table that is going around the president, you just, in some ways, you could say it's kind of eye rolling. You're like, yeah, bickering and all that stuff about what to do. However, the roles that certain people, you think they are locked in and stereotyped as well. And you're like, oh, okay. nicely
There was
done.
a nice
Bravo.
swerve with
Yes.
a moment, especially with Mr. Offerman's character. And I'm like,
Bravo.
nice. Thank you. Thank you for not doing what I was afraid you were going to do.
Right.
Jenny McTeer, even Hannah Waddingham. When I first saw that she was cast in this and then I saw the role she's playing, I'm like, oh no, that's not a good casting choice at all.
Oh, no.
But actually watching her perform, I'm like, no, you know what? She pulled it off. It was good.
Had she been in any other installments? Okay.
no.
That was a little jarring for me just
Yeah,
because I
it
know
was.
her as the Ted Lasso lady. But yeah, I thought she did fine. A little bit of trivia, Alan.
Yes.
Do you know what significance the May 22nd, 1994? Was that the date? The year
It was
the part of that one.
premiere of the original Mission Impossible movie.
I did not know that until afterwards. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well done.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Tip of the hat to you,
Yeah.
Mr. Mick Q.
Yes.
No, I thought, yes. The callbacks, the references were just handled just right enough.
Sure.
Any more, 10% more, it would have been too much. It would have been like eye rolling for me, but it was
Got you.
just hit it just right. So that was good.
Okay.
Okay, well, that is Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Will we be reviewing another Mission Impossible movie in 3 to 4 years? Don't know. Hard to say. Probably not. Maybe so. I don't know. But anyway, I'm coming out generally positive on this. I'll just go ahead and tell you, Chris, on a 5-point scale, I'm at 3.5, I think. I was at 3 with Dead Reckoning, so I definitely want to give this more.
Okay.
I don't think I'm quite to a 4. Not quite, but I'm definitely at the 3.5 level.
Did you have a more packed audience than what I had, or was it about the
It's
same?
a little more packed. We went Sunday night,
Okay.
right in the thick of the holiday weekend. The Dolby was completely filled. We were in the non-Dolby, the spillover theaters,
Sure.
I like to call it, basically.
Yeah, that's where I was.
People
too,
are like,
so-
oh, I couldn't get into the Dolby, so
So
I
I'll
guess
go
I'm
here.
in these other theaters. And
Right.
yeah, it was a pretty decent turnout for that. So
Okay.
yeah. All right, Chris. Well, let's take a quick little break from our conversation here. When we come back, we've got a couple of trailers to play. I do have a quick little follow-up news item, and then you also have a recommendation to share. We have a lot more to do. Stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. We had our review of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning. Or is it? I think it is. The Final Reckoning.
I think it is.
That is our final review of that series. Chris, let's turn our attention to some news items. We do have a couple trailers to play, but before we do, I did want to bring up one very, very quick and possibly a very inconsequential news item, but I still wanted to bring it because we just talked about Tom Cruise and the Mission Impossible series. And we also talked about Christopher McQuarrie, or McQ, as I'm hearing that's how he likes to be referred to.
Sure.
They have been in the news the last couple of days, maybe joking, maybe not, about a potential film that may be getting made featuring a certain character of Mr. Cruise's that most people would not expect to come back in a movie.
Huh. Okay. Is this the guy from Tropic Thunder?
Yes, it is.
No way.
Tom Cruise's Tropic Thunder fan favorite Les Grossman may be getting his own movie. In a recent appearance, this is from Variety reporting this, in a recent appearance of Josh Horowitz's Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, the director, McQ, Christopher McQuarrie, said he and Cruise have had some very real discussions about making a standalone Les Grossman film. McQuarrie is quoted as saying, "The conversations we've had about Les Grossman are so effing funny. Tom and I are talking about it. We're having very serious conversations about it, how best to do it. It ultimately comes down to what the character is." So for those not aware,
And he was a movie producer?
he was a movie producer,
Okay.
like studio head producer.
Gotcha.
That's from the film Tropic Thunder. That was Ben Stiller's kind of action spoof comedy satire about Hollywood film.
Right.
Tom Cruise, very much against type, played a very loud, foul-mouthed, abrasive movie producer.
And he was unrecognizable, right?
I mean, that's what
Because
the
he wore
media
he wore a
said,
suit
but
that was like,
he's totally recognizable. But yes, according to the media, he was, quote,
Totally
unrecognizable.
recognizable, okay.
He wore a bald cap. He had
Right.
those big bald, top bald hair,
Okay.
glasses, a beard. He was a heavier weight
set
guy.
guy, yeah.
Yes. But I think it's a genius performance.
yeah,
I loved it.
It was interesting.
I was just so happy to see Tom Cruise play so against type and to have
Not
fun
taking
with
himself
it.
seriously.
Exactly.
Got you.
So look, do I like the idea of him a standalone movie? I don't know if this supports a standalone movie, if it needs it, but I would like to see the character back in some way, shape, or form. Would be kind of fun to see.
Tom Cruise just doing an outright comedy would be interesting. He's never technically done that, right? I mean, he was in Tropic Thunder, but that wasn't his movie. so
Right. He also had cameo in Austin Powers Goldmember.
I did not recall that.
Yes,
Okay.
he played there was a whole sequence at the beginning where Steven Spielberg was directing the next Austin Powers movie, and Tom Cruise was cast as Austin Powers in this
Okay, that
big budget
vaguely-
Hollywood version.
vaguely
Gwyneth
familiar.
Paltrow was like his co-star. It was
Okay.
it was funny.
Okay.
But I think outside of those two moments, I can't think of him. Well, he did. Was it Rock of Ages?
He did.
This musical.
Right.
It was comedy.
Yeah, yeah.
It was definitely, more comedy than anything
He played a
else he's
washed
done.
up rock star.
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Stacey Jacks, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. I know my Tom Cruise performances, so I'm kind of up on that. I like it when Tom Cruise plays well against type. I mean, I still think his performance in Magnolia,
That is my favorite Tom Cruise
it
performance.
is absolutely his
hands
best
down.
performance. Yes. Les Grossman, I think, is a very good performance just because it's so unexpected from him. So anyway, we'll see. I mean, maybe that's a good kind of role he can take. It's actually probably would not require many stunts, although I think Les Grossman did dance in the film during the credits, sequence.
right.
So that would have to be repeated. Tom Cruise is going to have to get his dancing shoes back on, but probably better to be doing that than dangling from a plane,
Sure.
high above the ground. Okay, so anyway, that's all I had to say on that, is that they are at least supposedly talking about it.
Okay.
All right. Let's get into a couple trailers. I think we have 2 trailers to share today. First up, Chris, I'm going to maybe have you tell me a bit about this because I'm not familiar with it. It's the film called Americana. It's coming out in August this year, and it stars Sydney Sweeney, Paul Walter Halsey. Is that how you pronounce her name?
I believe so. Yeah.
The performer Halsey.
Yes.
Simon Rex and Eric Dane. So do you know much more about this film?
Not much more than the actors that are in it. Simon Rex also being in Red Rocket.
That was the film that
Sean Baker.
Sean Baker did before Honora.
Correct.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I believe it's like, I don't think it's a true crime thing, but it's like a crime thriller type thing. It's my understanding.
Okay. Well, I have not watched this. Have you watched this?
I have not.
Okay.
So
Well, let's check out this trailer. Who's the director? Who do we know who directed it?
don't know that either. I think it might be the person's first film. I guess we'll see when we watch the trailer.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that
Actually
afterwards.
say
Here we
that,
go. Here's
yeah.
the trailer for the film Americana.
What would you do if you had $1 million?
I'd go to Nashville, sing professionally.
I didn't know you were a singer. You sing country music?
What kind of music is there?
Oh. Wow.
I got a really dumb idea I'd like to run by you. I think something bad's going down.
Have a look at the newest addition to my humble little collection, a Lakota Indian ghost shirt. Hello? A ghost shirt?
So that was the trailer for Americana, coming out August 22nd, the year of our Lord 2025.
Sure.
Chris, thoughts on the trailer? I mean, we're seeing it for the first time here.
Trailers, obviously, we've said this many, many times. Take a drink, because we say it almost every time we do this segment. Can be misleading, but they can do the most important thing for me is put movies on my radar that I've never heard of, that aren't part of a franchise or something, but like make me say, hey, that's a movie I'm interested in seeing. And now, hopefully, I don't see anything else about it until I sit my butt down in a theater and watch it. Yes, this film does look like it is a crime. Obviously, not a true crime. I said I didn't think it was. It's not, I don't think. But yes, this looks interesting to me. It's kind of a thriller type thing. Looks like amateurish people trying to do a robbery and make
got
off
a very
of
Raising Arizona type of feel to it. Even the trailer tries to play up a Tarantino kind of connection as well. So I think you got all those elements thrown in. I like a good inept criminal film.
Sure.
People in over their head, this looks like that kind of style. And, I'm okay with the cast. I think Paul Walter Hauser is the one that I like, and I'm always interested in when he's on board with a project. So that's probably the draw for me. Sydney Sweeney, I'm a little, I could take her leave with her past performances, but I think there's a good performance in there waiting for her to happen. And
okay.
Maybe this is the kind of role that works for her really well.
And we mentioned Simon Rex. I think he looks like he's perfectly cast in this.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I am very much interested to see it. It is Tony Tost's first directorial debut. This is his directorial debut. So a new name to me. I'll be interested to see what he brings. He also wrote the film as well. So
okay, good.
It apparently might be his baby project he's always wanted to do. So
well, to come in as a first project, writing, directing, and have a good cast and a good, well cut together trailer is a good sign. So it could be a good film.
The one thing that I'm like, okay, interesting. I did notice that this was at the South by Southwest Film Festival in 2023.
Ooh,
right.
That's
and just now getting released in 2025. But maybe that's just a problem of, I don't know. Maybe there was a bidding war. It wasn't resolved. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the lapse in time there is the one thing that may make me think, okay, maybe I need to lower my expectations a little bit.
True. Okay.
I'm still curious to see.
No, I'm still curious as well. But yes, it does bring a little bit of a wrinkle to it, just kind of curious what happened there. So, All right. Americana coming out August. Another film coming out in August. This is August 29th. Is the film Caught Stealing. Caught Stealing. I'll tell you, I've seen half of the trailer. I've not seen the whole trailer. I walked into the movie theater as this trailer was playing, so I only saw the last end of it. Would never have expected from at least the part of the trailer I saw that this is a film directed and being produced by Darren Aronofsky. I think the last movie we saw him do was The Whale with Brendan Fraser.
Yes.
He did Mother before that.
Yes.
Of course, many others before that one, but those are the two more recent ones. So to see this film, Caught Stealing, which stars Zoe Kravitz, Austin Butler, Elvis, Regina King, Matt Smith, Liev Schreiber, Vincent D'Onofrio, Griffin Dunn.
Wow.
All in this film.
It's interesting cast.
And it's a crime thriller drama, which again, does not sound like an Aronofsky film. And I'll tell you from the trailer, I don't think it looks like one either.
Okay.
But that's kind of cool about it also.
Sure.
So I'm kind of anxious to see what happens here. Now, I'd like to see this trailer in its entirety because, again, I can't base a film off of just 20 seconds of the end of a trailer. So let's watch the trailer for Caught Stealing, and then we can discuss it on the other side. Here we go.
What the hell happened?
Some last call. Drink them if you got them.
Let's go back to your place so you can take advantage of my poor judgment.
I depend on your poor judgment.
I want to know if I can take this seriously.
What do you need to take us seriously?
Come on, kids, get a room.
Sorry, Miss Kitty.
Oi! What the fuck you doing, geezer? Is that the best you can do?
I've got to fly back to London. I need you to take care of my cat.
I like cats.
I like dogs.
Well, that was the trailer for Caught Stealing. Sorry, Chris.
No, So you didn't see the beginning of the trailer. I'm assuming that was red band because of the amount of profanity.
It was quite a bit. So maybe Moose can find a non-red band version of the trailer to drop in than what we saw. But
sure.
Yeah, I tell you.
Looks like a Guy Ritchie film.
It looks like a Guy Ritchie film. It looks closer to even the Americano trailer we saw before.
True.
I mean, yeah, if you had told me, like, tell me the director that did this film, Aronofsky would be the last one I would probably have named thinking about.
That said, the amount of body, damage to bodies and violent, that does remind me a little bit of like the wrestler, he would get beat up and like Black Swan a little bit. But yes, as far as like subject matter and stuff, yeah.
But being supposedly another, maybe an inept crime comedy drama. I mean, it's just, it's a very different film. It's probably got me more excited for it. I'm like, all right, I want to see what Darren Aronofsky does with this type of genre film.
Right.
Because it is very different than anything he's ever done.
Agreed.
So that sounds interesting, at least to me. And I mean, Austin Butler, I think, is a good actor. I'm excited to see what he does. I really like Zoe Kravitz. She's in this. So we'll see. But it also, I'll tell you, just the setup of it and everything, it's got the potential to be a huge misfire. I mean, it really does. I mean, I could very easily see people coming out of this kind of movie being like, yeah, this just didn't work. And it'd be an interesting experiment for Aronofsky, but we'll see where it goes.
And looks to be a little bit of a kind of a flashback to the past of New York, kind of like not a nostalgic postcard per se, because it's a violent movie, but kind of like a throwback to a certain era of New York City. You see a skyline, you see the World Trade Center, so you know when this movie's set. So
true.
Yeah, just interesting. Be not something, as you mentioned, not something you would typically think of Aronofsky doing.
Not a bit, but interesting still. Yeah, all right. Well, that's coming out also in August of this year. So both of those coming out within the next 2 to 3 months to be able to check out Americana and Caught Stealing, competing for box office dollars within a week or so of each other. Okay, Chris, that is all the news we had to share. So how about let's roll right into your recommendation. Chris likes to bring film recommendations to the table for us to check out. And Chris, I believe you have one to share with us on this episode. What do you have to recommend?
I do. We're going to talk. We've done a lot of talking on this episode about Ethan. We're going to talk about Ethan some more.
Okay.
But this is Ethan Hawke, not Ethan Hunt.
Right.
This year marks the 30th anniversary of Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise that starred Mr. Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy. It's the story of a young man and woman met on a train in Europe and wind up spending one evening together in Vienna. Unfortunately, both know that this will probably be their only night together, or at least they thought so at the time, because this film then spawned two sequels.
They have several more nights together.
So, but yeah, Before Sunrise, it's a great film. It relies a lot on dialogue, and it's just a lot, basically, two people standing around or, walking, talking, and that's the film. But the quality of the acting and the roaming conversations they have, it just works. Richard Linklater, he's done a lot of, cerebral films, this trilogy, Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, Before Midnight. Those three, you could say, if he'd made no other movies, those would be his movies. They'd be great. But of course, he also did Boyhood. And that was a monumental achievement in itself. So he's made a lot of work, but this being the 30th anniversary of Before Sunrise, I just felt like I had to bring it up. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's rentable, on most streaming services. You can find somewhere to rent it. I didn't find it streaming for free or anything like Amazon Prime or Netflix, but I know you can rent it. It's old enough, 1995. You could probably find a DVD at your local library if you went there to check it out. But yeah, Before Sunrise, it's a good one. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
No, it is one of my favorites, and it's important for people to know that you may hear that it's like part of a trilogy, and yes, the whole trilogy is really good. This movie, though, does stand on its own. It's not one where you're required to watch this, and it has to automatically you're required to watch the other two. This one really works on its own, but it's also a nice feat that if you choose to watch the whole trilogy, it does pay off for that as well. So it works both ways, which I think is a good film. It works by itself and it works as part of this bigger trilogy. So it's good.
And it's one of the rare examples where you hear of a sequel and you're like, ugh, why? Yeah. And then you watch it and you're like, nope, Totally pays off. And then you hear of a sequel to that sequel, and you're like, okay, what are they doing? They're really pushing their luck. And you're like, nope, it works. Totally works. Ethan Hawke has said about the series, Before Sunrise is about what might be, Before Sunset is about what should be, and Before Midnight is about what is.
Yeah.
And that's like perfectly put by one of the stars of the film. And it's it's just great. So Before Sunrise.
I completely echo your recommendation. It's a great movie. One of my favorites. Happy to hear you recommend it. That's great. All right. And how can people watch it? Is it
it's rentable.
Just rentable,
yeah, it's
right.
not streaming. I couldn't find it streaming anywhere.
All right. So just you have to shell out a couple bucks maybe to watch it.
Or local library DVD.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You go to, is it on the Hoopla service? It's not on there?
I couldn't find it. Well, at least, that's done by area. So in my area, it was not on that service. Right. It might be if you live in other parts of the country, not Western North Carolina.
But definitely check out your library service, both tangible DVDs as well as online with their library-related streaming service and see if it's available there.
And, the fact that this is the 30th anniversary, I wouldn't doubt that they had put it in certain theaters to, make event. So if you wait maybe a couple of months, it'll probably pop back up on streaming because they've done a limited theatrical run. So fear not. It'll probably pop back up.
Good deal. All right. Well, that is going to wrap us up for today. Our review of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning at the top of the show. Trailers for Americana and for Caught Stealing. A little Les Grossman, Tom Cruise news tidbit for you. And then Chris's recommendation of Before Sunrise as a film you ought to check out if you've not seen it before. So, Chris, how can anybody get a hold of us or talk with us after this recording is over?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can leave us a voicemail via the contact page on the mesh.tv website, where you can also see other episodes of this podcast if you want to check those out. Follow us on Facebook at Foot Candle Film Society, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter, Foot Candle Film. Al and I are also on Letterboxd, where we attempt to try to keep track of what films we're seeing and leave quick takes. Do us a favor, if you like the show, consider giving us a star rating, write a review, or share with friends whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on, because it'll help us reach new listeners, and we'd appreciate that. Last but not least, gotta say, 2025 Foot Candle Film Festival be running this year from September 19th to the 28th. So if you're going to be in Western North Carolina, consider stopping by and give it a look.
All right. Well, that wraps us up. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We look forward to talking to everybody next time we're together. Take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.